Welcome to my Fangorn Forest Part 6. The final video. My Fangorn Forest. Enjoy!
Pippin! Let's go. Go on. Call for help. Squeal. No one's gonna save you now.
Okay, so the board was supposed to be a 4x3, I think, in my original estimate. But it turned out that I had my sizing incorrect, and actually the two boards together were 3x2, or they were both 4x2. So it turns out that the board itself is a 4x4 when you put them together. And the way that I have it set out currently is to play in this direction, so up through the forest on one side of the board, and kind of a barren kind of landscape on the other side. You could kind of, I guess, do any sort of, you could squish the trees all together. I haven't played anything on it yet, so I don't know if that's a really good way that I have it set out. And I will be trying different things as I go on, but that's the way I've set it out just for the video. But yeah, you could smush everything together on one corner, you could have it all on one side, or you could do whatever you want with it really. So I'm going to start on the right hand side of the board. Yeah, I guess that's kind of the way. And this is the side of the board that I did, and it was kind of old. It was an older project, and I kind of just redid some of the things. So one of the interesting things that I did on this side of the board was I painted over the flock with that brown paint, and then I just dry brushed it. And it actually turns out that it looks kind of cool. I much prefer it to like fine sand because it looks more kind of rocky and it's easier to dry brush. Another thing that I was trying to do the whole time was put these little woodland scenics grassy bits. They're kind of cool, but man, they're kind of a pain in the ass to really use. As you can kind of see, they're all spindly and they're not uniform, and it's very hard to cut them. But I think from far away they look kind of cool. They look decent on camera here. And then I had two resin water features. So this one's just like a little pot. I guess it's just a water hazard. You can see like some of the things here I have aren't great. They're just kind of, they're very fiddly and they wilt a lot. Here's Iram. She's helping me do the final bits. Yeah, so I had this, and I think that'll be cool for like battle. You know, this is a long scape, and it's just another hazard. Here we have the resin river. That looks quite nice actually. I have some kind of whatever you call them, guys of the dead, dudes of the dead. What are they called? Warriors of the dead. And they're just kind of in there from a previous project. But I thought the river going into the forest kind of looked groovy. It's kind of cool. Here I have a big piece of cover just to kind of, you know, just to have it not so barren if you're playing on that side of the board. The water feature is good as well though, kind of acts as a hazard. Here I had an interesting kind of way of dealing with some of the things I had taken off. Actually, this had been a part that I just ripped off. It had been like a big hill. It was very difficult to get off, so I just turned it into kind of a difficult terrain piece, and you can see loads of woodland scenics straw bits there. And here is my dice box, which kind of makes sense if you're going to be playing. You know, if this is one side of the board and that's the other side of the board, and the dice box can be there for both players. It might be kind of a pain if most of the battle happens on the other side. Alright, so that's the kind of the old half. And what I really liked about the old half of the board is that the textures are actually really realistic, because there's so many different things that I've used on the project. So it looks really old and kind of aged and weathered, which when you see the new side, the newer side that kind of makes up the 4x4, you can kind of tell that it's kind of new. Piece of tree, that's kind of cool as well. It looks very Fangorny. So then we get to the actual Fangorn piece. Now if you're wondering what I did for the board, really what I did is just, you've seen in previous tutorials, just sand on PVA and then dry brushing with like a lighter color to get that kind of just a little bit of texture in the board. I also used a lot of Woodland Scenics 2mm grass, which was really cool. I really enjoyed doing that. I think it turned out pretty well. And here we have the forest's edge. Now I've set it up in a kind of a playable way because I really wanted to make it playable. So at the moment I have it kind of set up odd. It's kind of in like a semicircle, and I have it set up so that it kind of covers the river because I only have one half of the river and I don't really have it going through the whole board. But the way I set it up was to be quite spacious, I guess, so that your little men can go through kind of little bits of the board without too much trouble. I think the funnest part of the project was definitely doing the hills with the trees. So I'm particularly proud of this one, how this one turned out. I really enjoyed doing it. And these are all modular kind of hill and tree pieces. So this looks like a kind of mini diorama. And basically what I was doing is pretty much what I was doing for the rest of the project. So it's just polystyrene and then Woodland Scenics for the grass. And obviously I'm putting a little bit of sand on it and dry brushing it before all that. And then I'm using like little bits of the wheat grass, whatever you call it. And then I used the Woodland Scenics kind of trees to for the trees, and they look pretty good. I ran out of this stuff, the flock that you use, so that was kind of tricky, but it still does the job. And I think like the detail on it is pretty good. The dry brushing, the same kind of dry brushing that I'm using for the rest of the board, works really well, and that grass just on top really brings the whole thing together. So that's how I kind of built the Fangorn edge. I just built loads of those little kind of modular hills and trees, and that way I could move them around if I ever wanted to change up the game. And they look really good from far away. I think that's their main thing, is that they look pretty good from far away. So what I really wanted as well was a little feature of the forest, just a place where things are going to happen in the forest, and I haven't really kind of thought about how to best make that happen yet. But here's what I came up with. And so it's going to be like a place within the forest that's kind of basically open, so that stuff can happen within it. And my idea was to use the kind of Age of Sigmar stuff to kind of represent that place. I don't know, just as a feature, just to see a different part of the board. And I think I painted those quite well. They're kind of strange. They're strange in that they're cool looking, but I don't know if they exactly match everything else, or they don't stand out a super lot. But they are cool, and I do enjoy kind of just catching them when you're kind of scanning the rest of the place. So I think that works quite well. I haven't played it yet, so I'll have to come back to you on that one. But it was just to give the forest some kind of feature that kind of stood out just ever so slightly. And I think it just about does that. And so the forest, the way I've set up, moves moves kind of all through one half of the board and a little bit over. And I did look at the movies to kind of find the color scheme and I came up with this one, kind of dark, bitter chocolate. And it's, you know, it's quite like it. I mean, the movies have a lot of that grass, like tons of it, just outside the forest. But I think the trees themselves actually kind of quite look like trees, I guess. Yeah, it's really hard to make a battleboard that looks like the movie, but also plays really well. So it's more of a battleboard than it is a diorama, because dioramas are very difficult to make play well. So yeah, there's Legolas. He's just kind of standing on a little hill. He's kind of a cool guy. But yeah, you can kind of see some parts of my forest is maybe just slightly unfinished. But it's kind of cool. I'm pretty happy with it. If I were to change anything, I probably underestimated how much stuff I actually needed in terms of maybe PVA glue, paint, that kind of thing. I really thought I had enough supplies, and a lot of the time I ran out, so you're kind of seeing sometimes that I ran out of basic things, and maybe because of that, you might have 2 different types of grasses or things like that. So if I was doing it in the future, I would definitely get a lot more of the stuff that I needed. The amount of time that I think I spent on it was a lot more than I thought I would. I really thought it would take not as long, but I ended up putting so much time into just painting and dry brushing, particularly those hills. There's a lot of them. I wanted a lot of trees, and it's kind of like an endless hole that you just keep going down. And not in a bad way, but I just, you know, maybe when you put in 10 hours or so, some days I felt like I'd be a lot further along with the project than I was. Particularly these, for the amount of time that I had to spend on painting them. And they do look cool. But I just don't know if they're quite worth it. I could have gotten a similar result from just doing these ones. The woodland scenics kind of trees, and they're just a lot easier to do. So yeah, if I was to do it again, I'd definitely plan out some kind of a schedule of time, or a time off when I could kind of get it all done. Might be some kind of plan.